Hi everyone, and welcome to Tom Gruenwald Outdoors. I'm Tom Gruenwald, and today we're going to be fishing whitefish on Lake Michigan's Bay of Green Bay. Joining me will be Don Dumas of Action on Ice Guide Service. We're going to be showing you some strategies for how to ice these hard-fighting, great-tasting fish. Again, I can't emphasize how important it is when you're fishing a large body of water like the Bay of Green Bay to really do your research ahead of time. You really need to think about the fish that you're going to be going after, the type of structure, cover, and forage that they're relating to in that body of water. And really, to be efficient, you just can't walk out on that big expanse of snow and ice and start drilling holes and expect to catch fish. You have to fish specific spots. And Don, you've got some spots out here that you've marked ahead of time. What kind of structures and features are you looking for that are attracting whitefish?
Well, you got to look for the rock piles. I mean, it's a secret. It's not a secret that the rock piles create zebra mussels, and the zebra mussels are where the whitefish are pounding. And you might have a foot thick of zebra mussels hanging on these rocks down there, and then whitefish just come in and just pound them and they eat them. And anything with rock structure, it seems like, and once that gets pressured, them fish will just kind of filter off, and they'll maybe eat more of the bloodworms or larvae that's in the mud. But you want to fish pretty much rock structure when you're fishing whitefish.
Okay. Do you ever look for areas where those rock piles meet a mud bottom, where you get kind of diversity of the bloodworms and the different types of forage down there? Is that something that's important to consider?
Yeah, a lot of it's funny you say that, but a lot of the east shore along Green Bay is a lot of rock structure. Mm-hmm. And where the rock goes off, you do tentatively get into the mud. Okay. There isn't much for sand. I mean, in certain areas they have sand. There's a couple bays that have sand, but the majority of it is mud next to the rock. So okay. It's kind of nice because you just never know what you're going to catch. You could catch whitefish, you could catch walleyes, you could catch perch. You know, they're all right there in that same targeted area.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, and it's really neat because with today's technology, we can take a lake map and we can find some of these rock piles and where they relate to and adjoin those mud flats. So we've got bloodworms out in the mud flats, we've got different types of minnows that may be in these areas that the fish can relate to. And you mentioned the zebra mussels on the rock, and that diversity of forage draws these fish. Don's pigged some of those locations out here. Now we've actually went through and looked at, we've got the GPS coordinates off of these maps, and we're entering those as waypoints into the GPS. So now we can be efficient instead of just going out there on this big, huge expanse of snow and ice mm-hmm. and randomly drilling holes and trying to find fish. We're really limiting our efforts to high percentage locations, aren't we?
Right. Thank God for all these new electronics and all these maps that you load into them with all the contour lines. I mean, it just saves so much time.
It really makes it an interesting, fun process too, doesn't it? Adds a whole new dimension to your fishing. So anyway, hey, I'm anxious to go out there and give this a try, Don. And I just want to say one more time how important it is. Do your research ahead of time. I would strongly urge you, if you're going to try fishing a large body of water like this, stop in at a local bait shop. Contact a local guide service and spend a day or two with them. Kind of learn the water a little bit before you try venturing out on your own. And of course, it's always important to ask right away too about safety, ice cracks and ice thickness, so you can get out there and have an effective fishing approach. Let's go and do this. All right. I'll tell you what, that's the way to go. I don't know how we ever would have got out here without having that Ranger. It's amazing, there's a lot of ice heaves and pack ice and stuff that is just a mess up near the shoreline, actually. The bay had frozen over earlier this year, and then wind kind of broke everything up. It blew all those broken chunks of ice up against the shoreline, and it's like going through a junkyard. I mean, there's just pieces of angled ice of all shapes and sizes and everything for a half mile. Got our GPS points set, and we came right out. This is the first spot. We're gonna just drill a few holes, start moving around, try to search, see if we can find some fish if they're on the top. or the sides of this reef or near those bottom content transitions we were talking about earlier. And we've got 4 or 5 spots marked. We're just gonna, keep moving, keep trying until we get on a nice big school of whiteys. So we'll be right back, catch a few fish right after this. Okay, we're on our spot now, got our holes drilled, set up a shelter. It's cold today, but it's not as bad as I would have thought. Actually, the temperature is about 13 below. Wind chill's about 30 below, but with the shelters blocking the wind, makes a big difference. You can really stay relatively comfortable. And what I'm gonna do here, these whitefish I've been averaging widths, seeming probably anywhere from about 15 to 20 inches long. And I've got a special rig here. And I kind of covered up that treble hook so it doesn't snag inside my rod bag here, but this rig is kind of unique to what they're doing out here on Green Bay. They do real well with small spoons like this little HT Dominator spoon. Gold, I've been told, is the best color. So I've got that pre-rigged, I did that ahead of time. And then I always run a leader down to my spoon and I put a little barrel swivel up above my rig. What that does is helps prevent line twist. But the unique part of the rig here is that we actually have what they're calling a sliding treble, a little treble hook there, right up above that swivel. And what we can do is use the spoon, kind of pound on the bottom. Whitefish are notorious for feeding on the bottom. You look at them after we catch one, you see the downturned mouth that they have so they can suck food items up off the bottom. So I'm gonna kind of stir up the bottom, bring them in. And a lot of times when those fish start to come in, they're swimming down looking, they'll see that hook up here, but I'm gonna bait it up with some grubs or worms. And a lot of times, probably better than half the time, they'll actually hit that hook up here by the swivel. And you've probably seen, if you're fishing with electronics, fish come in and they'll actually be looking at your swivel or at your split shot. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do here, is those fish that do come in and look, they'll bite. So it gives me 2 chances at hooking a fish. So I'm gonna go get some bait and get these lines in and see what we can do. Got one! That one popped it. All right, thank you. Look at that. You look back at that fish, remember how we were talking about trying to bounce that spoon on the bottom. And both Don and Buck here, Buck works with Don at Action on Ice Guide Service, and both of them said, Tom, you gotta pound the bottom with that spoon and keep it down there. And then what's nice is that the spoon's down on the bottom and this sliding treble hook that's up above that swivel is what seems to be catching the fish. 2 out of 3 of my last fish, Buck, were on the sliding treble up here. Hey, well, he came and pounded it right off the bottom. Well, this one here, you can see there's a sliding treble. This one actually hit the spoon. There we go. Nice whitefish. These are typical size whiteys out here on the bay. You know, you can, if these things are actually a very popular sport fish in Canada and parts of the ice fishing belt across the United States. And you know, you get up into Canada and some places, and I've caught whitefish that'll go 8, 9, even 10 pounds. You know, but a 4 or 5 pounder is nice, and these here on the bay, most of them are just averaging in that, well, yeah, maybe a 15 to 20 inch size range, and actually are really good tasting too. You go out and you clean these things up. You can boil them, you can broil them, you can fry them, bake them. Whitefish are a lot of fun. Hard fighting, great tasting. That's the right mix for me. I got that whitefish, now I'm gonna go back down again. I was talking about the importance of using that spoon. That little heavier bait allows me just to get that presentation right back down to the bottom. When these schools come through, you don't want to waste any time. You want to try to get that bait back down there, get back on top of the fish as soon as you possibly can. And that spoon, as opposed to the lighter jig that I have on the ultralight system, just allows me to get down there and start working that hot strike zone as quickly as I possibly can. Another thing I'm really noticing here, and this can make a big difference in whether the fish turn on or not too, is that we got a lot of current right now. If you actually look at my line, it is not going straight down like you'd expect. It's going off to the side of the hole. And the reason that's happening is here on the Bay of Green Bay, of course, there's open water out toward the middle of the bay. And of course, out in Lake Michigan, which rarely freezes, you got open water. And with the heavy winds we've had, it's blowing those waves right up in here and making currents up underneath the ice. And those currents can really shift fish location. You know, you're fishing like we are on this rock reef and this bar. There he is. We get on the ends of these rock bars like this, and you want to try to fish maybe down current, just like you would if you're fishing trout in a river. I gotta try to keep my eyes from freezing up there. Yeah, that fish just came and pounded it. It seems like, boy, this current picked up, and as soon as that current picked up, so did the fishing action. All right, there he is. Oh, and again on the spoons. They're really, really hanging on. They're fighting on the bottom real hard, hanging there. I can try to get his head turned here. There he is. Look at that. Oh, yeah. These are just some actually very, very nice fish. I'm really surprised with this cold front that we're able to catch some of these bigger fish as consistently as we are. But I'm very happy about it. Look at that. That's another nice whitefish, broadside on it. Look at that. Yeah, for Green Bay. Yeah, I can't even hang on to these things. My hands are cold, first of all. Secondly, whitefish are notoriously slimy, slippery fish. And they're very muscular. They're real hard to hold on to, and they decide they're going to start flopping. There's not much you can do. There he is. So you got a couple over there behind us too, huh?
Yeah, there's quite a few fish around, it looks like, and a little tough bite though.
Yeah,
they're work them.
They're coming through off of the bottom, and I just you just keep going. About every 10-15 minutes, one will pop it.
You got some nice whitefish here.
Yeah, actually a couple of those were real good fish. But I was talking to Buck just a little while ago, Don. He was, recommending taking that spoon and really banging the bottom and just trying to stir it up and get the fish to come in. And interestingly, I mean, 2/3 of my fish are hitting that sliding trouble. Yep. What do you do? Are you pretty much doing the same thing? Are you a proponent of snapping that bait, working it aggressively? How do you jig?
What I'm noticing that you're actually jigging a lot more than what I do.
Okay.
Just for some reason today, it seems like my bite is real subtle, slow presentation. But I've caught, I think 3 of the fish that I've got are all on that small treble hook slider. And it seems like they're not real aggressive, obviously, because it's cold.
Yep.
And then maybe last night being so brutal out that it might have slowed them down, and they don't want that real hard presentation. But obviously you're getting them with a constant jigging. But what I like to do too is after pounding that bottom, just kind of lift it up when you see a fish and just take a little pressure off that line, and I'll see them just kind of chewing on it.
Okay.
And I'll set the hook, they'll be there. And then also I like to take and go like 6 feet up and just jig it.
Okay.
Jig it real hard, 6 feet up. And then you might see them fish from a distance coming in.
Okay.
Them fish will catch the flash off these spoons, and they'll come flying in from the outside, and if we're concentrating on 3 inches on the bottom, it's hard for fish 20 feet away to see it.
Sure.
Because this is all rock up and down. So obviously it's working.
But the trick is to just experiment, keep trying a few different things and see what's gonna.
There's no right or wrong way in how somebody wants to catch a fish or how they're catching fish, and whatever's working, everybody's going to develop their own little technique that's going to work for them, and that's what we want. But there's definitely a lot of fish here.
I think actually the movement that I'm using here isn't so much I'm trying to get that lure to pop, but just so I can stay in touch with the bait, so if one does come up and kind of suck on it. And like you say, I think a lot of people don't realize that when you're going to set the hook, you're out summer fishing, fishing walleyes, whatever, and you jig, you get a bite, what's the first thing you do? You drop the rod, you pause, you drop your rod tip, and then you set. In ice fishing, it seems like people get a bite, bang, they set and they miss. And in doing this, when I feel that, I can just kind of stop, give a slack line just for a second, and then
exactly
hit them.
Did you notice, Tom, on some of these fish too? Did you notice your line picking up?
Yeah, because they come up.
Swim up with them.
Yep.
They have to turn their bodies to come up to you, because they're a bottom-feeding fish. If people that don't know what a whitefish, I mean, they're pretty much, their fish is more on the bottom of their mouth, you know, so when they bite, they come up like that. And
Right.
Kind of chew,
Yep.
so they're swimming up as they hit it.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking that Dominator spoon, the gold Dominator spoon, and kind of banging it off the bottom. Just try to create a little puff of silt that comes up that attracts the whitefish over toward the bait. And that's exactly what I did on that last fish that hit, and then actually caught the whitefish on that sliding treble. But these guys have caught quite a few of these whitefish right on the bottom. You pound the bottom, that spoon's sitting there, and they'll come along and suck the bait right up off the mud. So sometimes that's a good technique too. And I stop and just kind of show you the gear that I'm using right now as well. Again, you can use anything from a pretty stiff medium action when you're using a heavier spoon for these whitefish, right down to some real light, what you'd ordinarily use for like perch or bluegills with lighter line if you want to, and smaller jigs. But with the smaller spoon, I'm using here like a medium light action. This is an Artic Bay QX. And what's nice about this rod is I've got a fair amount of tip action here, but lots of backbone, so if I do get a bigger fish, I can get a good hook set and fight the fish in. Also, fishing outside on a colder day like this with these heavier rods, I can use a little bigger guide, which is a little less likely to freeze up when I bring in that fish up 30 feet. And nice cork handle with the rings. Put electrical tape over the plastic so that's a little warmer to the touch when I'm using it, jigging with my bare hands. And of course that Accu-Cast Reel, which comes up at an angle, runs my line right from the spool to the guide, a little better performing ice reel. And with this longer neck here, I can actually even have my glove on and still fish and reel up. And when it's cold like this today, that's something I really come to appreciate. But what I'm going to keep doing is just kind of keep pounding the bottom here and just waiting. These schools of whitefish come through every once in a while, and all I got to do is just keep trying to attract them in. And then when they get there, get them to hit that bait. And it's been recommended to me that I kind of pound that bottom, snap it a little bit. And then what I found with whitefish is that usually they'll follow it up. So I like to jig up like this. And then when I got a fish following, I'll bring them up maybe a foot or so and then pause. And oftentimes, boom, that rod will bounce, and that's right at the point where that whitefish will crack the bait. And we're in business. Right now I'm not marking too much. There's been a couple of fish came through off the bottom, and I've seen some suspended fish. None of the suspended fish have hit, and I suspect they might be shad. There's a pretty good population of shad out here this year. And a lot of times the walleye fishermen will say they fish high. You know, you think of walleyes as being a bottom fish, but they'll fish those walleyes up high. Why? Because that forage or those shad are right up underneath the ice. Whitefish, however, they feed, of course, off of the bottom. Tend to be that way, especially here on the bay, and especially given this cold front we've got today. You know, temperatures yesterday, ironically, were up near 20 degrees. I mean, it was actually quite nice. There wasn't any wind. Had a little bit of light snow. And of course, we planned this whole fishing outing, and overnight, the winds blew up. Big, high pressure, cold high pressure system came in. Temperatures dropped to 13, 15 below, and they had a wind chill advisory. Winds were blowing pretty hard overnight. Fortunately, those kind of let up a little bit. We still got some wind out here, but it's not as bad as it was. But that cold snap seemed to have kind of, as you might expect, turned the fish off a little bit. They're not biting as hard as they had been before that system came through. So I just got to keep working for them and just keep going. There he is. That time we got the hook set. Yeah, and he came up for it. See how high I had to lift that rod, get the hook set, bring him up. When you get an aggressive whitey, they say it just comes screaming right up off the bottom for the bait. It is. Here he comes. All right. Now this one, he came up high. Look at that. It was on the treble. He slipped off right as we pulled him up. But that was on that sliding treble up high. Yeah, it is. Look at that. That's number 10. That's my limit, folks. You know, I'm telling you, fishing out here on the Bay of Green Bay, these fish are really concentrated out here, and obviously it's a big body of water. You need to know exactly what you're doing. You have to get a hold of somebody like Don and Buck, you know, that know the water, know the area, know the locations to go out and try. You know, we just moved around. We tried a couple of different spots until we found a concentration of these things, and the bite wasn't strong. This cold front did turn them off. It wasn't as hot and fast as sometimes it can be out here, but you know, we fished for a couple hours, and you know, we've all got our 10 whitefish. Tell you what, they taste great. They're a lot of fun to catch. They're very willing to take a variety of different types of baits. You can see them on the sonar, watch them come in. Telling you, it's a type of fish that hasn't been really capitalized on as much as it should be in this part of the country. You see them up in Canada, people fish for them hard. There's certain select areas throughout the United States where people do fish for the whitefish. Here it's been kind of an underutilized resource. Highly recommend, if you get a chance, you might want to come up here, try fishing on Green Bay for some of these whitefish. It's a blast. You'll have a lot of fun. Hey, we'll see you again next time on Tom Gruenwald Outdoors.